Shiner. He has a testimony he wants to share with you today about addiction and about what God has done to get him out of that, to sustain him and be an overcomer. So let's start with the prayer as we begin. Father, thank you and praise you because it's what you do, and that's why we're here. It's not about us. But Father, it is about your power through us. It's about your grace and mercy. And you're going to share some powerful words from Brett here. Words that some of us are going to hear immediately because some of us are dealing with some of the same things in our lives. And in others, we look at your power and your strength on behalf of someone who has come through a difficult time, and we're going to praise you for that. So Father, pray that you be with his words. Pray that you be with his life. I pray that you would help all of us to understand that you want to take us from where we're at and stand us on solid ground. Your solid ground. In Jesus we pray. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, my name is Brett Barton. Some of you know me. I'm born and raised here in Williamsburg. Grew up in Shiner Church. This is my home right here. You guys are my family here. I live in Lexington now. Been there for about 3 years, but I used to come to SpiritFest when I was young. I'm 30 years old now, so it's been quite a few years since I've been back here, but it's good to be back. My story is a story of addiction, of drug addiction, alcohol, and the lifestyle that went with it, and how I've overcome those things today. I was telling the last group, it's hard for me to tell this story to you guys because, like I said, you guys are my family. Some of the things that I went through, it's a little bit different. I've told my story before, but mainly when I tell it is to other addicts and alcoholics and telling them how I got clean and sober and just trying to help them out. But this is a little bit different with a different crowd here. So I'm not good at public speaking, just bear with me. So a little bit of background, like I said, born and raised here. I was raised in a good home here in Williamsburg. There was no drugs or alcohol around me as a kid. Everything was provided for to us. Clothes on my back, food in our stomach, roof over our head. I had a good childhood. My parents divorced when I was a little bit, I don't know what year I was, 10 years old to say that. I don't know exactly how old I was, but it didn't really affect me then. What it did to me was it taught me at an early age on how I could manipulate other people. If I didn't get what I wanted from Dad, I knew I could go over here and get it from Mom, so I would go back and forth to get what I wanted. You'll see a pattern like this along my story of how selfish of an individual that I really am. So I played sports growing up all the way through my childhood. That's all I ever did. I would stop one sport, start another, all through my school years there. And that's how I fit in with my peers, my boys, who I played ball with. We all hung out together, and that was who I run with. That was my crowd. That's how I fit in. So I consider myself a pretty good kid growing up. I never caused any trouble. Like I said, Dad might say different about that, but I felt like I was a pretty good kid. I never caused much trouble, So growing up, let's see, freshman year in high school. We'll start there. Freshman year in high school, I was playing football, and I got asked to go after the Friday night game. I think it was one of the first games of the year. We got destroyed. But the star running back asked me to come over to his house after the game on Friday night and spend the night there and party with the old kids. And I was excited that they would ask me to come to that. So I wanted to fit in with them, and I knew that they were going to be drinking there at that party. So I knew where my dad hid a bottle of whiskey in his closet. So I went into his closet and I stole that bottle, and I went to the guy's house to the party, and I showed up with this bottle of whiskey, and they were so excited that I brought that with me that I felt, you know, a part of. I felt like a part of them that night. So and they were so happy about it, you know. So it made me feel good about myself. So that was my first real introduction to drinking. Right there was the first time I really started drinking. Throughout high school, I did the occasional drinking on the weekends after the football games, you know, the parties, but I never got in any trouble, didn't have any consequences of my actions. I didn't think it was a problem, you know. I didn't do it during the week. This and that. I wasn't hurting anybody, so it wasn't a problem, I thought. I was telling them this earlier. I'm not really going to sugarcoat much of this story. I'm going to kind of be blunt and honest about it, and I think that's important for you guys to hear. You're in an age where you can understand this and be able to relate to some of the things I'm going to say. So I started smoking pot a few times here going through high school. A few times. It wasn't a regular thing. Somebody would just show up with it, and I would say yes because I didn't want to say no because of what that would make me look like to my peers. I don't want to look down on. I don't want to be looked down on. I want to be fit in with the cool crowd, so I didn't want to say no to them. So I smoked pot a couple times through school. It wasn't a problem. I made pretty good grades going through high school. I never did any homework. I didn't do anything in class. I just showed up and took the test and did pretty good. I got by with as little as possible that I could get by with, really. And I did okay in class. So I graduated high school. I had a few offers to play some small college football. But at that time, I felt like I was just burnt out on sports. That's all I ever did was play sports, one after another, and I was just tired of it, and I just decided that I didn't want to play anymore. I'd been a diehard UK football fan, UK everything, so I wanted to go to UK just to go to school. So my parents supported me, and I moved up to Lexington to go to UK. I had a buddy of mine that had already been at UK for a year up there, and he had been in a fraternity, so me and him got our own apartment off campus. Looking back, that wasn't the smartest idea today. So I got up there. Like I said, I went to Williamsburg High School, graduated with 50 students. So my first class at UK, I walked into, and it was Memorial Hall filled up with what was like 1,000 students. I thought it was huge, just jam-packed in there. And I walked into that room, was just shocked completely. You know, I was not ready for this. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I didn't know anybody up there. It was a whole new crowd, you know. I didn't have my buddies that I played ball with. I didn't know how I was going to fit into anybody. My buddy Josh had introduced me to a few people, but I didn't know anybody. I was alone. So he started taking me around. We started going to some of the parties around campus when we first started off there. And so I started drinking at the parties to give me some ease and comfort, to release the tension in me, and it kind of opened me up. So I felt like I could talk to other people there. You know, that's how I felt like I fit in. I could talk to people. I could talk to the pretty girls when I was drinking. It just made me feel like I was a part of. You know, I had the void in me from not playing sports. Something was missing in my life at that point in time that I had to fill with something else. So I started filling it with going to these parties and drinking and associating like that with new people. So started hanging out with a whole new crowd of people. You know, this being my first time away from home. I didn't have any rules to go by. I didn't have a curfew. Told what to do, when to do. I was on my own now, finally. So we started a group of us. I started smoking weed, and I started smoking weed every day. Then I got to where I depended on it every single day, and on top of that, always drinking. And now it wasn't just a weekend party thing. Now it was like 3, 4, 5 days a week type of deal. We would wake up on a Wednesday or something and start drinking as soon as we woke up at like 12 or 1 o'clock. Because by that time, I was on my way to class one morning. It was about a month into my first semester. I was on my way to class on my motorcycle, and I got hit by a Lextran bus and totaled my bike out. My bike was in 1,000 pieces laying across the street, and I didn't have a scratch on me. And I missed class that morning. I think that was the first time I missed class. And I told myself, well, that wasn't too bad. You know, I missed class, nothing happened. It won't hurt to miss a couple more classes. So I started missing more and more and more class. And then it got to the point where I just didn't go to class anymore at all, period. I had just given up on class. It was not important to me at the time. All I cared about was going to the parties, meeting pretty girls, doing different things like that. Class was, it didn't, like I said, it just wasn't a thing anymore. I made a fake transcript to send home to my dad to let him know that I was still doing good in school because I flunked out that first semester. And I spent more work into that fake transcript and trying to prove to my dad that I was still doing good in school than I did that whole first semester in college going to class. It was a mess. So I start, like I said, I'm smoking every day now, drinking all the time now, just nonstop parties, not going to class. I don't have a job. That's all I'm doing now. But still, I don't have any consequences of my actions. I haven't caused any trouble. I'm not hurting anybody. So I'm telling myself this is not a problem. This is what young men in college do. You experiment with these different things. That's what I kept telling myself. I felt like I had not crossed any lines. I didn't know anything, about addiction yet. I hadn't crossed any lines. So there's no problem to this. It was just a learning experience, I thought. So I flunked out that first semester. Still doing the same thing. I try to manipulate back home so my parents would keep sending me money so I could keep partying and just doing what I wanted to do, what I wanted to do. So there was a day I remember that I woke up and I was hungover from the night before a party, and nothing was doing the trick to make me feel better. And a buddy of mine said, "Here, take this pill, and this will make you feel better." So I did, and that was my first introduction to Oxycodone. And that was the drug that took a hold of me. That was the one that was going to do me in. And once I took that pill, it made me feel great immediately. I loved it. I fell in love with it the second that I took it. It took everything away from me. It took all my fears away, my hurts, habits, hangs up. It took everything away from me, and it just made me feel good. So I started, like I said, I fell in love with that drug immediately. And I started using that drug every day. It helped me get through my days, I felt like. I didn't want to get up if I didn't have that drug to get me through the day. Second semester there in school, Dad gets a letter home that says I've got a .7 or something GPA in school. So party's over. So they send me, he says, "You need to come back home and get out of Lexington. You can go to Cumberland here back home." So I said, okay. So I come back home thinking that would help, getting away from all these people in Lexington, the people that are the bad crowd that I've been running with, Getting back home. Well, I took my addiction with me, the disease of addiction. I tell you guys, it took me a long time to actually understand that addiction was a disease. It took me a while to understand that. And to me, my opinion, that's what it is. It's a disease, the disease of addiction. So I went back home and back here to Williamsburg, going to Cumberland. And guys, a small county like this, the drugs are everywhere. They're everywhere around, no matter where you're at. So it was not hard for me to find what I wanted, what I was looking for. So I took that addiction and brought it right back here with me. I had my first run-in with the law when I was 20 years old. We had just left a house party. It was actually just right down the street from here, down towards the lake, down Beat Creek. We had a house party there, and we all left, and the crew, we were going to Waffle House after the party. A buddy was driving my truck. He pulled in. We were the last people to pull in. The cops pulled on behind us, flipped the lights. They come up talking to us. They said, "You been drinking?" I said, "Yes, I've been drinking." They started searching my truck. They found 21 fake IDs in my truck. I had stole those from my dad's office where he worked. And I didn't realize how much trouble I was in at the time until a little bit later. So I got arrested. That was my first night getting arrested. They took me into the jail, threw me in the drunk tank. And one of the guards came in there, and I knew the guard very well. His name was Cecil. And he came in there, and he said, "Brett, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Come here, I want to show you something." He got me up. He started walking me down the hallway of where the inmates were on the general population. He said, "Here, you stand on this side of me, and I'll stand on this side." He put me against the glass where the inmates were, and he walked me down that hallway. And as we walked down that hallway, all those inmates in there were just staring at me as we were walking down through the hallway. And he's telling me, he's like, "These guys in here will hurt you." He's like, "You don't need to be in here." And I'm walking down through there, and it scared me to death. It really did. It scared me, walking down that hallway. So I told him, I said, "Listen, man, you'll never see me in here again. All right? I'm never coming back to jail." Well, that was a lie. So I get out a couple days later. It's on where I'd been arrested for my charges. It was on the state's top news story. It was a big deal. My dad could have lost his job for it. It was all bad. They put me on a probation. I thought I'd learned my lesson. 1 month later, I get arrested again in Florida for drug charges. I get arrested down there. I get out pretty quick. I have to go down there to court. I plead guilty to a charge. My buddy pleaded guilty to another charge. Took the rap for one of them, so I didn't have to do a count a year in Florida. So, back to back getting arrested there. I go back home, and by this time, I still have not learned my lesson, okay? And those pills I was taking, it got so bad where I needed more of it. I depended on it. I needed more and more of it, okay? I could not afford to do what I wanted to do, so I started stealing. I started stealing things from my family. I started stealing things from my friends. Whoever I could steal from, I would. Didn't matter who you are. I didn't care if I hurt you. It didn't matter to me. I knew if I got caught doing what I was doing that I was going to go to jail. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. That's not what I thought about. All I thought about was getting high that day. That's all I cared about. It's hard to say that, but that's true. That's all I cared about. So one day I had been stealing things, and my dad had finally got fed up with me, and my dad had me arrested right on my front doorstep one night. I showed up to the house, cops pulled up in behind me, and my dad had me arrested on my front doorstep one night. And I was crying. I said, "Please don't do this. Please don't do this. I'll get better. I'll get help." He said, "Son, you messed up. You need to, you've done wrong. You need to face the consequences of your actions." So I get arrested. I go to the county jail. I do a little time. And guys, let me tell you, I've been arrested in 10 or 12 times, 3 different states. I've been in different counties. And jail is not a fun place to be. I'm sure you can imagine. I've been in there. I told the other crew, I've seen grown men get hurt really bad behind those walls. It's not a joke in there. There's nothing fun about it, and there's nothing you can do about it when you're behind those walls. You have 4 walls and your thoughts. That's it. You're not getting out. you know? And there's nothing you can do about it. It's a scary place in there. And for some reason, I couldn't grasp that idea that I never want to go back. So it got to a point where then I don't care if I got arrested. It's just another thing. I'll just go back, do my time, and get out. No big deal. The way I thought was just insane. I'm telling you, that disease I was talking about, it's a disease that centers in my mind about the way I think about things, how I view things, how I view others, and how I view myself and the world around me. My perceptions were completely messed up about everything. So I get out of jail that night, and what do? I keep doing the exact same thing as soon as I get out that got me arrested on the first time. As soon as I get out, I'm doing the same thing that got me arrested. I didn't care. Like I said, I was in total, that disease had me in its grip and wasn't letting go. I was just overtaken by it. It had me, all right? So I finally, my parents were like, hey, Dad's like, you need some help. You need some serious help. You need to go to rehab. So I was like, fine, okay, I'll go to rehab, whatever. They called this place up called Teen Challenge, and they said, yeah, it's a year-long program. I was like, I'm not going to rehab for a whole year. And Dad was like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to go there for a year. He said, but you'll go back to county jail for a year. So I was like, all right, I'll go to rehab. So I get shipped off to North Carolina to this program called Teen Challenge. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but the way I'll describe it is Bible boot camp. That's the way I'll describe it. That's all we did was study the Bible the whole time. It's very strict. You're told what to do, when to do, and how to do it every second of every day. Very strict program. The first 3 months I completed that. I went to the second portion of it in Braresburg, Pennsylvania, up to the main center up there. And I told myself, one of the things when I was in this program, I told myself that I have a drug problem here. So I'm just here for a drug problem. Alcohol's not my problem. I can drink successfully and not have any problem with that. So I was in a choir up there, and we would travel around Pennsylvania every Sunday and sing at different churches. One weekend they let us go up to Buffalo, New York, and stay the weekend up there and sing in a church. And different people from the church would house us up in their places. So me and 3 of my best friends got to stay at this preacher's house. He was a young man, real cool preacher. And me and my buddies were joking around and say, hey, we're going to sneak out of this preacher's house and go downtown to Buffalo and get drunk, knowing that it wasn't going to happen. He takes us to his house. He pulls off, and his house is 1 block away from the Strip in Buffalo, New York. The apartment that we're sleeping in is his garage, separate from his house, facing away from his house right towards the Strip. So me and my buddies are high-fiving each other like, yeah, this is going to happen. We got this. But we snuck out of a preacher's house in rehab, went downtown Buffalo, New York, and got drunk all night long, came stumbling in at 5 in the morning, and had to be up singing at a church at like 7 a.m. It doesn't make any sense, The insanity that we were thinking about this just was stupid. It didn't make any sense. And we thought it was hilarious at the time. So, obviously I hadn't learned anything yet. A little while later, they give me a 4-day pass to go home for the weekend. I go home, I drink when I'm home. On the way back, I got a layover at an airport. I start drinking at the airport on my way back to rehab. I go to catch my connecting flight. The lady's like, have you been drinking? I was like, yeah. She's like, well, you're too intoxicated to get on this aircraft. We're not letting you on. I was like, you're kidding me. You don't understand. I have to get back to rehab. Like, I'm on my way back to rehab. She's like, you got to sober up and catch the next flight. I make up some long story, call the place, tell them that I missed my flight, this and that. So I'm just telling you guys this because that's the insanity of the way I thought about things during this time. I get back up there, I get into some trouble because I get caught using tobacco, and they give me some some consequences, another 30 days in the program, 90 days, I can't call my family. I was like, that's fine, that's okay. I've had enough of this program anyway, I'm leaving. So I called my mom, tell her to come pick me up in Pennsylvania. I go live with her in Knoxville. I'm there maybe 2 weeks before I start using drugs again. I'd got a job at a sporting goods store, and I worked at a fitness center for a while. Lost both those jobs because of my addiction. I couldn't keep a job. I would steal from them. I would show up drunk. I would show up high. Because I couldn't function. I couldn't get through my day without putting something in me to change the way I felt. I was not comfortable enough with myself to just get through the day. I had to have something in my body that would change the way that I felt. So I get arrested more and more times here in Tennessee. I moved down to Florida thinking that that would help, getting away from this. I moved down to Florida. That doesn't help. I meet a girl who runs a beach bar right there by my house. She uses drugs. I use drugs. She lets me drink for free. So that didn't work out at all. And I forgot to tell this in the other one. That girl today, she passed away about 2.5 years ago now. Yeah, that girl that I met, she passed away about 2.5 years ago because of an overdose. So it took her. So, and 3.5 years ago, I was down in Florida. I'd been out drinking all day, and I had this little moped that I would cruise around on the beach on. I love that little thing. But I've been out drinking all day. I decided to drive home that night. I'm on my way home. I don't remember anything about it. I barely remember any of the whole day. I wake up 8 days later just coming out of a coma. I'd been hit by a car, cracked my skull open in 2 places. I had a traumatic brain injury. All that was a result of my drinking and my using. So my parents, I got the call that no parent would ever want to get. I don't have any kids, I don't know, but imagine if you're a parent getting a call saying, hey, your son's been in a wreck, you need to get down here because he's probably not going to make it. You know, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow right there, you know. So there I am, laying in a hospital bed right there in a coma, not sure if I'm going to live or die. My family's by my side the whole time. So I told you guys about me saying to myself that I wasn't causing any problems, I wasn't hurting anybody. Well, that was a lie, because in my addiction, everything I did, I hurt everybody around me. My family, my friends, my loved ones, everybody was affected because of my actions and my decisions and the things that I did. Everybody that's around me is involved, and I hurt them. And it's sad to say, but at the time I didn't care. It's because I'm that selfish of an individual that I only cared about myself. It's hard to say that to you guys. It is. But it's the truth. So, after that accident, I'm good for a couple months, and you would think a near-death experience like that might change a man's thinking on the way he views things. Well, it didn't me. I didn't know there was a solution, so I went straight back to drinking and using again. I started drinking, and I'd get blackout drunk every night. And I was at the point there, guys, where this is the truth. I was at the point where I didn't care if I lived or died right there. I really didn't. Didn't care a bit. Everything was complete, total darkness to me. That was the worst time of my life. I was at my rock bottom, okay? I called my sister, who had some similar issues like myself, and she had been clean and sober for a few years. And I called her and I told her, I was like, listen, I've been messing up. I've been drinking, I've been using again. I said, we talked, and I was like, well, why don't you let me come up there and stay with you? She's like, if you come up here and stay with me, then we're going to get you into rehab up here because you need some help. You need to man up and get some help. That's what she told me. So I agreed, because at this time, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep killing myself. Something has to change. I told myself, I just can't keep living like this. And it's not even living. It really isn't what I was doing. It's just existing, really, is all it was. So I drove up to Lexington. And that was November, let's see, I woke up the next morning, that was November 13th, 2013. I used the last little bit of drugs I had left and was taken by a friend up there and dropped off at this rehab place. And when I got there, they told me there's a waiting list and that to get into the program, I have to sleep down at the homeless shelter. So that night, I go in there. I have to sleep in the homeless shelter that night. They give me a mat and a blanket, and I put it on the floor, and I have to sleep there. And there's a mat. There's people sleeping here, along that wall, and that wall. Homeless people everywhere. It stinks. It's awful. There's nothing good about it. And I'm laying there that night thinking, well, this is what my life has come to. I'm living in a homeless shelter today. I was living in a homeless shelter. Okay, that's what my life had come to. I'm laying there, crying myself to sleep. I was alone, scared to death, felt like I had no one to turn to. I was at my rock bottom. So I stay there for a few days. They finally allow me to get into the recovery program up there. So I get into the program up there, and this was a completely different program than what I had been in before. They taught me the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a program that I'm still very involved with today. So this program, they started teaching me these things, and all I cared about was I just don't want to drink. I just don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs anymore, no matter what happens. So they started teaching me all these different things, and I didn't really understand it at first. And let me tell you this too, I always felt, guys, like I knew who God was, okay? Like I said, I grew up in this church, I knew who God was, but over those years, God's path for me was going this way, and I'm just starting, working my own path. I'm falling away from God's path for me. So I lost, I didn't feel like I knew who God was anymore, okay? So they started telling me, working these steps, that I have to find a power greater than myself. I have to find a higher power, okay? And everybody had their different higher powers, and the book that they gave us talked a lot about God. And so I was like, well, and I listened to a bunch of other guys that had been doing really good for a while, and they, that their higher power was God. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So my dark days, my addiction, my recovery is really what led me back to my personal relationship with Jesus Christ today. That's how I came back into knowing God, okay? So these steps, I started working them, and they say I have to, I have to turn my will and my life over to the care of God every day. I have to pray. They say I have to pray and meditate, And when I'm first hearing these things, I'm like, what does this have to do with me not drinking or getting high anymore, okay? I didn't understand it. And then, as time goes along, I realized that it has everything to do with my life, with me getting clean and sober. Turning my will and life over to the care of God, okay? I have to continue to try to strive to follow God's will in my life today, okay? So, I start to get involved in this program up there in Lexington. It's called Celebrate Recovery. It's at a church that I attend there. It's a Friday night. It's a service that it's the 12 steps and their biblical comparisons is where we do it. And it's a place where people go for their hurts, habits, and hang-ups. It's not all drug and alcohol related. It's a very good program, and I'm involved in that. And I run the men's chemical dependency group. And what it is, guys, to me is that, I have to do something every single day to battle against this disease of addiction, okay? Listen, I have to wake up. This is a lifelong process for myself. I have to live with the fact that I'm an alcoholic, that I'm a drug addict, and I will be for the rest of my life. And that's a hard pill to swallow, you know? There's nothing easy about that for the rest of my life. So I have to do something every single day for my recovery to battle against this disease. Whether it's talking to somebody, praying about it, going to a meeting, whatever it takes. Because if I'm not moving forward in my recovery, then this disease of addiction is creeping up on me. And in my opinion, guys, I don't feel like I've got another one. I don't feel like I've got another run left in me. If I go back out and start using and drinking again, I'll probably die, most likely. If I don't, I'll go to prison for a very long time. Some of those things that I did in my past came back to haunt me. I got in some pretty big trouble a few years ago, and it came back on me. And I'm on a probation right now, which is not a problem to me anymore today because I'm doing the right thing. I don't have to worry about it. But for example, if I mess up and go back out and start drinking, I get caught, I have to go to the prison, the state penitentiary for 5 years. And I don't really want to go. You know, it's not something that appeals to me. Okay? So, but today, I want to encourage you guys that there is hope over this, okay? There is a solution to these problems. You know, I know that most of you guys know somebody that has a problem with addiction or whatever. You know, somebody involved in your life has a problem with addiction, okay? Since I've been in recovery, I've had a lot of friends die over this disease. It kills people every single day, and that's a fact. One of my best friends in Lexington, he's in jail for quite a while now. I go visit him when I can up in Lexington. This disease will take everything from you that you love and snatch it right out from underneath you. This disease will kill you, okay? So like I said, it affects everybody involved too. It does. And to be where I'm at today, in a position that I would even be asked to come up here and speak and to tell my story to you guys is a testimony in itself that there is hope over this disease. There is a solution to the problem, okay? And the solution is Jesus Christ, in my opinion. That's who helped me get over this disease of addiction, okay? Today's what, the 12th? November 12th? Monday the 14th will be 3 years that I have not touched a drug or a drink in my 3 years. Not one drink, not one drug, nothing. It's been 3 years since I've done anything. But it's just it's one day at a time with me, guys. That's really all it is. It's one day at a time. I'm in a position today to help other guys like myself, other alcoholics, other drug addicts. I teach them how I got clean and sober, and I help them take them through these steps today. I've got a good job today. I'm happier today than I've ever been in my entire life. Everything about my life I love today. And, you know, I talked to a lady last night on the phone for 20 minutes during the football game. She called me because her son was arrested and needs to go to rehab. So she's on the phone with me last night for 20 minutes just crying and saying, I don't know what to do with this. He needs help. I don't know what to do. So for someone like that to call me and ask me for help in that kind of situation is amazing. It really is. But, you know, and like I said, just to be able to come up here and speak to you guys, and later on today, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to ask. That's all I got. Thank you so much.